Good morning and welcome. Thank you everyone for joining us. My name is Heidi Flagg, and we are very excited to have you here today for this webcast. We're going to be talking about a comparison between VDI and tools like SCCM and how this new hybrid VDI offering from SmartDeploy fits into the mix. And we are going to keep this event to 30 minutes. We're going to try really hard to do that. We have a nice presentation. We're going to do a demo and then we'll open things up for Q&A. So throughout the presentation, feel free to submit your questions through the Q&A function. We'll also be doing a live raffle. So one of you lucky attendees is going to win 25 free SmartDeploy licenses with a year of support. So we will announce that name later in the event today. We'll also send out a recording to this of this event tomorrow by email, so keep an eye out for that if you have to jump out or if there are other people on your team who would like to see this and weren't able to make it. And other than that, I'm going to do some quick intros here. It's sunny in Seattle and we're all bright and shiny here this morning, and we're excited to have this presentation. So in the room here I have Eric Nymark, our Director of Engineering.
Hello everyone.
Spencer Dunford, our General Manager.
Good afternoon, everyone.
And Aaron Suzuki, our CEO.
Hello.
And with that, one last thing, we will be doing a couple of poll questions today. So if you see those pop up, just go ahead and answer the question. We received a really great response to this event. We got quite a few registrations, and so we like to tailor our presentation to the people who are here. And so when we ask those poll questions, it just kind of helps us understand who's here today. So feel free to respond to those when they pop up. And with that, I will hand things over to Aaron to get started.
Thanks, Heidi, and thanks everyone for joining us today. Just wanted to take a second and talk about who we are and how we got here and what we're doing. So we are now in Bellevue, Washington. We started life in Seattle and moved across the lake not long ago, and are situated in a nice building right at the intersection of Interstate 405 and Highway 520 for those of you who know the area. We've always been very committed to IT professionals, and most of you are probably in organizations where you have a CFO, maybe also a CIO, maybe a CISO, but we really are interested in helping you do your job better, and that's been our professional commitment. We are an independent company. We don't have any outside investors or aren't affiliated at a business level with any other organizations. We're just here to do exactly what we're doing, and have been accumulating a lot of very happy customers along the way, and thanks to those of you who are. Today what we're talking about is the new suite of features that we've added to the product. And these have been brewing for some time, but really it finally has culminated in realizing a vision that we set out to accomplish a long, long time ago. And we really think about this in the context still, like I said earlier, of these many jobs that have to be done. You have to get employees laptops or workstations when they start. You have to fix them when they break. You have to update them when they're needing updates. You have to push out new apps. You have to push out new policies. You have to replace devices over time. There are all kinds of jobs that haven't and aren't going to go away. And we've been rather surprised, and maybe you have too, at how slow the rest of the industry has been to try to keep pace or improve the tools that are out there. And so we have taken it upon ourselves to do exactly that. But the way that we've gone about it is a little bit different than prevailing models. For a long time, it was the old way of SCCM and Altiris and what's now called Ivanti, what used to be Landesk. And there were these big solutions that would do all of these things, and there were lots of dials and switches. And you would have to become an expert at many of these things. There were also individual point solutions. You tackle these things one at a time. You would just do imaging. You would just do application management. You would just do policy management or asset management. And then came the brave new world of VDI and these, fancy new virtualization-based solutions. Very interesting, had a lot of promise, had a lot of really awesome management advantages, but we're also really infrastructure intense. Took a lot of data center resources, pretty costly, a lot of moving parts, kind of a lot to learn, a lot of trade-offs for end users as well. And so we thought, man, what would be awesome is to give you the control of the old way with the management advantages of the new way without compromising that end user capability. And that's really what we've tried to accomplish. So we've done this as well, it's important to note, because of what customers like you have all said, which is we want it this way. We want to do these things, but we don't want to do it that other way. And we certainly don't want to do it the old way. There's got to be a better way. And so that's what we've tried to accomplish. So before I get in over my head, I'll turn the time over to Eric to talk a little bit more about kind of how it is and how it works and what we've really accomplished here. There's some really good stuff going on in terms of how we integrate with the cloud and all that. So Eric, take it away.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Aaron. I think Aaron hit on all of the main points here, right? All of these solutions are trying to put something in place that you can use to manage your environment. So VDI is trying to do that from a centralized location, and obviously that can have its bonuses and drawbacks. So it'll work great in some scenarios where everyone's in the same office and you're able to connect to these fast servers, or you're always there. It's always this workstation. You're good to go. But once you start getting outside of the organization, you then start relying on cloud VDI, and where does the cost and performance benefits start to turn you off there. SCCM in the same way, right, is this great monolithic solution that can basically do anything for you. It's your own beautiful set of Legos with some instructions on how to build some cool stuff, but also you can go figure out how to do anything you want. So that requires some specialized personnel and effort to maintain, and where do you kind of find the overlap there of how much is too much versus how much of it you're actually using. So with that in mind, we really looked at creating a solution that would pull from the best of everything, like Aaron said. So giving you simple, easy to use features that map back to these layers so that you can manage everything in your organization. We got creative in some areas and started offering what we call platform packs, which map back to the hardware layer, and we create these for customers. So there's 3,000 or so of these currently up on our repository that we maintain, and Spencer will show you more about these in the demo, but it's just another great piece of the puzzle that you don't have to think about, right? It's just simple, easy to use, download and go. Some other stuff that we did around that as well is we're working on, the same type of solution for applications as well. So you just download them. Maybe you provide us with some redistributable media or a license key, but basically keeping those things as simple as possible so you don't have to figure out how to script installations or, pull files and registry keys off of machines and push them around. With that said, I think we can look at more of these features, and Spencer will, and map each of these layers back to kind of how it works in the product. Before we kick it over to Spencer, though, I have one more poll for you guys.
All right, we'll open that up here. So this is just to get an idea of which of the scenarios you are managing. So select all that apply on this one. I have a feeling there might be a lot of you that have to select all of these, but just to help us understand and so that Spencer can tailor his demo to the audience here. We'll keep this open for just a few more seconds here. Good participation rate here, people. We have an attentive group this morning. That's great. All right, just a few more seconds and we'll get this closed out. All right, I'm going to close this out and Spencer will hand things back.
Awesome. Thank you, Heidi. So thanks, Eric and Aaron as well. I think hopefully based off of a little bit of the architecture that they've described and some of the approach that we're trying to show, I'll try and illustrate how that actually plays out in the product. And we picked 4 kind of common scenarios that we use with customers to manage their environment. So I'm going to touch on some cloud-based deployment. Certainly we can do on-prem, and a lot of customers still like using their own infrastructure and network. One of our first customers was a government entity that needed complete offline capability, so we still allow that as well. So we'll see, you can do everything from a USB key all the way through cloud deployments for this work. Second piece up would be management around user data. Customers have their documents and they need them to follow their data around on different devices, and so we'll show how we deal with that. Third piece is to talk about application deployment, and I'll show you two different ways about how we do that, and those are some of the new features that Aaron had mentioned we're bringing to market. And then lastly, touch on the device driver management, since that's such a customer delighter. So this is what we call the SmartDeploy console, and a lot of customers can get through a proof of concept in an afternoon with the product, which is pretty telling. Some of the other products that you've looked at would take much longer to set up or implement or use or figure out how to play with it. So it's a pretty simple demo environment that I happen to have. Any of you on the phone can go and grab our fully functioning trial and replicate this in your own environment. The hope is that you don't have to buy fancy servers and equipment to use SmartDeploy. You should be able to use what you have. So I'm doing that. This is just a basic server hidden in our closet with Hyper-V on it, running a bunch of VMs to show you some of this stuff. When you launch it, you authenticate with the account that you create at smartdeploy.com. And again, we're tying in with various cloud storage providers, and to be clear, these are optional. If you felt like just using SmartDeploy with a DVD and doing deployments that way, you could, or a USB stick, or your own SAN storage in the closet. You can do all of that. So a lot of customers need to support branch office, remote users, and this is a way to do that without a VPN connection requirement or anything else. We can do all this even over an end user's Wi-Fi network, which is really cool. In this particular case, we'll show under this computer management section, these are several computers that I have talking back to my central console, meaning we've installed the optional SmartDeploy client, which on these end user systems, which allow them to talk back and allow me to come in and easily right click and say, hey, I want to deploy a machine now or schedule that sometime in the future. For this, we'll just go and pick a basic image. We can allow users to defer this as well. I'll show you an example of that where maybe it's not a good time for an end user to have their image or system wiped, so we can go ahead and kick that off. This happens to be that system that I initiated this deployment to. Basically, we're sending down reboot instructions with a pre-populated answer file. So this can all be zero touch. You don't have to get up from your desk or go visit the end user. This is just going to push this down. Basically what happens is we send a reboot request to the machine. Rather than rebooting into Windows, we'll reboot into our own pre-installation environment. And then with that answer file, see, this is the prompt that says, hey, IT wants to reload this. Are you okay with that? And say, sure. So we'll see that get kicked off. Basically, we'll come back into Windows PE, and we know all of the deployment settings that we want, and it'll just zero touch blow through it, come up to Control-Delete shortly thereafter. There's a lot more that goes under the hood, and we'll have to get into that later discussion. There's not time to get through all of that today. Here's another example of a cloud-based deployment. Notice you can tell this connection type is cloud. If there are certain machines where you know that are going to be faster from a cloud-based connection instead of your on-premise network, you can choose that, and it will prefer a cloud connection where it can. So this is a good example of that, where we're actually going to use deploy an image to this device. Now again, you could, excuse me. Deploy this Google Drive, deploy this image that's sitting out on Google Drive, right? So we wanted to be able, we heard from customers that they wanted to be able to do deployments for a really inexpensive, cost. This is this particular machine. I'll kick off in a moment, but leveraging these third-party cloud vendors allows you to not spend a bunch more money on all this stuff and be able to support all those various offices and everything. And again, you can do these deployments over Wi-Fi and everything else. Here's a quick snippet of our answer file wizard where, hey, if part of the challenge is, hey, do you even know the SSID to join when you're in Windows PNC? We've done a bunch of magic to either use the one that's previously used, or you can statically apply one for it to use if it's never been on a wireless network. So we thought about all of those things all the way through optimizing packages for cloud-based deployment as well. So hopefully that gives you a good idea of a couple machines I've kicked off here to do a deployment, and we'll see how far we get in terms of progress in today's session. Next thing I want to talk about is client data. So we've made this pretty easy to be able to capture and deploy information from a user system. We do use the Microsoft User State Migration tool in addition to some of our own magic. But if I wanted to go and capture a user state, I could go ahead and do that on this particular machine. So it's a user state. Now you can capture or deploy. On capture, it's basically, hey, you got several settings that you could select to use, and then it's basically hit go, and it will create a MIG file out on a share. And here's an example of that, of one that I've already done. And so you've got your MIG file here. Here's an example of a machine where I've got a couple of photos. This is actually some old group photos from our team, which is kind of fun. And let's say I want all this data to go on this end user's new system. So we'll go ahead and pick that. So on this client 3, we'll go ahead and deploy the user state from that other device. Go on that, and in a short minute here you'll start to see those photos should show up in this screen. So the scenario is mapping back to the separate layers. This is the data layer, right? And so you want to make it more fluid so that the data on one device can easily be transferred to another. The most common scenario is probably going to be a laptop replacement where Susie's laptop is now out of date, you get a replacement in, but it's still quite a bit of a hassle to get it set up and configured so that she's back and productive on the new device. So this is a quick and easy way that you could even do this without basically leaving your desk. A lot of these capabilities rely on our client to be installed. There's several great ways of doing that. You could manually do it, and it takes 2 seconds. You could certainly run a script to use Active Directory and push all this stuff out to all of your end user systems as well. So it tends to be kind of a non-issue, and more of the features and capabilities we'll be adding to the product will rely on that. So it's simple wizards everywhere. It's industry best practices everywhere. We're trying to take the legwork and the guesswork out of it. And if you look at VDI and Config Manager and Ghost, we're kind of picking and choosing between those products about the capabilities and features that customers most badly want from them. There's no one perfect product for everything, and customers need to make educated decisions about their environments and what they need to have happen there. We're just trying to bridge gaps and give customers a reasonable spot to have everything they're looking for. Third thing I want to talk about is application deployment. So this is one of a customer's most requested features. That's great that we solved the initial imaging challenge, but now what? I need to push out Acrobat Reader 6 months down the line. A couple of ways we handle this. One is a lot of customers like to have a really clean, simple base image, and then script installs later on. So you can definitely do that. And you can see in our answer file wizard as part of a deployment, like here's several application packs that I've downloaded. And you could go and have a really clean base image with just Windows only and Windows updates perhaps, and then go ahead and script the installation of several applications as part of doing the deployment. So let's say in this example you wanted Dropbox and Firefox to be installed. And let's pretend you also knew you wanted those installed in a specific order. Maybe there's dependencies on one app being installed before another. You can specify all that stuff. So the advantage here is you can have one clean golden base image with the lowest common denominator that all departments could agree upon, and then maybe a separate answer file for per department that need specific software. So it's easier for IT to maintain, and the end users and departments get everything that they need. So there's one way of doing application deployment. The other way is right from computer management. We could come in and say, pick a machine here. We'll pick client 5, and we want to deploy applications. Again, now or schedule those for some time in the future. Here's some applications I've downloaded previously. So we'll go ahead and pick Chrome. And again, same feature where a user could allow a defer on that deployment if need be. So there's client 5 that I initiated that request to. We'll give it a moment here, but you should see Chrome show up on the desktop. We'll go ahead and pop it open and launch it and make sure it looks good as well. You can do more than one, obviously, and so I'll go ahead and kick another one off and say, hey, we also actually want, let's say, Team Viewer on that thing as well to help you guys troubleshoot devices. So you can see it's pretty quick. Google Chrome popped up in here. We'll go ahead and give it a quick test open and make sure it all installed correctly. But the idea, this should be done silently. This should be done in the background. You can make your own of these application packs. If you look at the library that we have, again, some of these features are in beta, not because they're buggy and crummy, so you guys don't be afraid to try them. A lot of customers want to wait until something's golden baked before they give something a try, but they really just don't have all the features that we're looking for to include to call them RTM. So expect RTM for these later this summer, perhaps June, July timeframe. Should be a good opportunity to have these RTM with what we want as our first crack at RTM. So there's some pre-built packs that we've made. You can download additional ones. Again, you can always create your own. And the point around creating your own is, sky's the limit. You can do whatever you want. You can specify whatever you want. If you look under the hood at one of these, you can see that it's kind of two sections. One is what are the files and bits that you need, and then the second piece is what do you want to do with them, or how should they be installed. So some of these we won't be able to provide the installers given the third-party vendors. So at a minimum, you may be able to provide the installer, but we'll give you the instructions to make all this stuff super quick and easy. Something else I want to call out is notice this column that says where these are uploaded to. The platform packs, the application packs, the images, everything can either be on-premise, it can be totally offline, or integrate with any of these third-party cloud storage providers that you like. Right now we have the 3 main ones, but there's more coming. Box integration is coming soon, as well as other vendors as it's driven by customer request. So yeah, we can check back on that machine and see if Team Viewer came down as well. Looks like in fact it did. So yeah, make your own, use our existing ones, give us your feedback and requests. Again, in this beta time frame is a great time to test these things out and give us the feedback and see what you guys think. Last thing I want to talk about is device drivers, and we call these platform packs. We've got this library of over 3,000 of these, like Eric mentioned, but we go through the legwork of grabbing all the custom drivers from the OEM, repackaging them up, keeping them up to date, and serving them up to you. And so it's as easy as going and saying, hey, I want to download a new platform pack, search through, pick whatever you want, and bang, you've got full support for those devices. You can take a look under the hood and see that these are audio, video, chipset, Bluetooth. It's everything to make the device work like a champ. So mapping back to VDI, you made a virtual machine, you captured it, we sanitized it, it's completely hardware independent. Now that golden image can get applied to any one of these devices that you want seamlessly without you having to change anything. So it feels sort of VDI, but guess what? The image is running natively just like it would with Ghost. We update these all the time. You can do a bunch of cool stuff, custom scripts and tasks. You could flash the BIOS as part of deployment, for example. So, but the cool part is all this work's done for you. You don't have to think about driver management, which regardless of what imaging solution you use, whether it's Config Manager or whatever, you're still on the hook to manage drivers. And customers tell us this is a huge pain. They hate managing drivers. They have to update them all the time. They're always out of date. Each time they get a new hardware device, whatever they learned from the previous version doesn't transfer well to the newer version. There's not a bunch of people understanding, INF files and the magic under the hood to make everything just work. So that's why we say, hey, we're kind of a hybrid VDI. You're running locally, but you get some of the feels, kind of like the management capability that you would want from something like a VDI type offering. So that's a quick tour of what I had planned to share with you guys today in terms of a product overview. Feel free to, I'm going to turn this back over to Heidi to kind of wrap up with the raffle and everything, and then let's get to some Q&A.
Awesome. Thank you, Spencer. Yeah, so if anybody wants to give SmartDeploy a try, feel free. Like Spencer mentioned, there is a free trial. The link is here, smartdeploy.com/download. There are how-to videos. Basically, we try to make it as easy as possible for you to self-serve and get through the proof of concept on your own. A lot of people can do that in just a few hours. So We are going to announce our raffle winner, so thank you everyone for being here. And the winner of 25 licenses with a year of support is Tom Berry. So thank you, Tom, and we will follow up after the event to get you your licenses. With all of that, we will jump into the Q&A. Spencer can certainly jump back and open the demo environment back up again if anybody has a specific scenario that you'd like to see, or maybe have him run through something again. I know he shared a lot of information, and if you need to see something again, we can sure do that. So we will go ahead and jump in here. So we've got a lot of questions throughout the presentation here. I think jumping back to one of the first scenarios you ran through, Spencer, with regards to data, user data. So Joshua wanted to know, what about backing up a specific folder and not just my documents?
Yeah, so it is configurable to some extent, but basically by the options in the actual overlay that you guys saw come up when Spencer was doing the capture portion, you can select whether you want all the documents from the entire drive. So basically anything that's not system-based files will get captured, or user-specific, which would be, let's go into users and back up each user. You can set time frames as far as if the user hasn't logged in unless in the last 30 days, don't capture their data because it's probably stale and not really actually their device. We can get into more granular areas, but it would require some XML editing, and it would be something that we would have to talk to you with and go through. But yeah, definitely possible.
So this is that screen that Eric was talking about. You've got several choices, but like you said, we give you options to script your way out of the wet paper box, right?
Mm-hmm.
All right, and we have a few questions around the application packs. So Andrew wants to know, are these pre-built packs? And then we have some other people asking about creating these custom. How would I package in-house custom software for deployment? Maybe you can speak to that a little bit.
Sure. So some of these application packs exist in the library. As you can see here, here's the library that we currently have of stuff that's just ready to go. You can always make your own. So if you want to create your own, you're basically going to launch the UI here that will help guide you through that. And it's really kind of those two phases. One is supply the bits that you want, and then the other is supply the instructions. And most commonly, these are done, silently, as silent installs to go ahead and, build these out. And for us, we work with a lot of obviously different software vendors, and they may not let us redistribute their bits, and so we'll need to have you guys supply the bits, and then we can give you the instructions to do it. But to be candid, we're still figuring some of this stuff out, right? And we're going to do what customers ask for. So if there's stuff that you guys want or need, you let us know, and we can work on that. As Aaron said, we're independent, and the reason we're here is to make your lives easier and better, consistently make the best product that we can.
Yeah, and I think part of, just to amplify that, part of what I think we mean by figuring it out is, dialing it in the way that you expect. We have a certain way that we would do things. Many of us were IT people for a long time. Many of us have used a number of the other products we've mentioned. So we have a certain vision and way and sort of expectation of how this would go that may or may not be yours. So we really need more feedback, and are going to continue to make improvements and adjustments to every aspect of this around the way that you want it to be. So that's the goal.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Aaron. So Jonathan has a scenario here. So for the application packs, I see that there are options to run commands. Let's say I want to install Chrome but specify the home page and a couple bookmarks to be standard for users. Is that possible?
Yeah, so some of those configuration steps can be done via a command task, and definitely something we could help you with.
Great. And then we also have another question from Mark around specific applications. So he said, what about items like Autodesk, AutoCAD, which are 10 to 15 gigs for the deployment? Are there any issues with that, Eric?
No, so it's just kind of a latency thing, right? What's bandwidth like? How long is it going to take to copy the bits down? And then the installation process is obviously going to take longer. But we've been deploying Visual Studio and Navisworks, which are larger ones as well. We're looking at publishing some of those. AutoCAD and Revit actually are on our list of things to do and really figure out. I know Adobe has some higher requirements around what we can and cannot redistribute, so it'd be maybe we create the instructions, you provide the bits, and then go from there.
Great. And Joel wants to know, could you speak to Pixie booting to image a machine that doesn't have an OS?
Yeah, we handle that today with Microsoft Windows Deployment Services. So you have a WDS server that you'd import our boot WIM to that device, and then hit the power button on that machine with no OS, and it's usually F12. It'll see the Pixie server and take off.
Great. Thanks, Spencer.
Yep.
And we do have a few different questions around SmartDeploy licensing and pricing. Do you want to speak to that a little bit, how we're licensed and where they can find pricing?
Yep, right at smartdeploy.com/buy. It's in the main nav there, but basically SmartDeploy is licensed on a per device basis, and you need a license for the total number of computers that you'd like to manage with SmartDeploy, whether that be imaging or pushing applications to it or updating the device drivers to it. It's a one-time fee for the license. The license is the same, and you can reuse it as much as you want. Image a machine once or a million times, it doesn't really matter. The license never expires. There is a support and services subscription component. You get a choice at the level of that services and support subscription that you'd like. There's kind of these three levels, and then based off of the features, there's a price. There's a little calculator here that'll give you MSRP, and then you can also see what subsequent years of a subscription renewal would be. It's relatively inexpensive, especially the value that you get for it. And yeah, you can buy directly through us or your favorite software reseller. We try to make that part really simple and straightforward. Generally, we have customers get through a proof of concept. We help customers through that process and educate them along the way to make sure that the product does what you're looking for, and then secondarily work out the pricing and the buy information as well.
Thanks, Spencer. And then a couple questions. Someone's asking about an education discount, and someone else is asking about MSP models.
Education discount, for sure we have that. And then MSP models, commonly MSPs like to just have a per deployment model where they image a machine once and then usually never see it again. So we do have a special model for that, and you can contact sales@smartdeploy.com for additional detail.
Perfect. Thanks, Spencer. And we are just a couple minutes over this 30-minute mark, so we will stick around and keep answering questions for a few minutes, but if you need to hop off, we're still recording this, and again, you'll get a link to the full recording tomorrow. If you do need to run, thank you so much for being here. We look forward to working together, and if we didn't get to your Q&A question, please feel free to reach out, and we will get those answers to you. So thank you so much. Taking it up a level, Robert wants to know, can you give more details on the software layers on the hardware? Is it a VM on top of the hardware?
That's a good question, and that's it is not. Everything is running locally on the endpoint. Basically what happens is you start out in your journey in life with SmartDeploy and you create a virtual machine. You run a tool called our Capture Wizard that offline makes a WIM or Microsoft Windows Imaging File or WIM file out of that. WIM is file-based imaging format, and that's how Microsoft distributes Windows itself. It's what MDT is. It's WEBCAST, SCCM, same deal. And that WIM can have whatever you want. It could be just the base image and updates, or it could have applications. It's whatever you load up your VM with is what gets captured and stored there. And then during deployment, you end up in PE, and it blows those bits down from Windows PE to the actual hard disk. And if you wanted to run scripted installs of software apps at that phase, you certainly could. And then after the machine's up in full Windows with SmartDeploy, you can push individual applications to that device over time as well. But to be clear, everything is running natively. It's using the local CPU and hard drive and RAM and the whole deal. There's no hypervisor involved on the endpoint. Any virtualization is involved on the build side and on the IT tools side.
Great, thank you, Spencer. And we have Joseph wants to know about Windows 10 major version updates. How would they approach that scenario?
Our general recommendation is to build a clean new virtual machine and image with each new major version of Windows. In-place upgrades, while possible, are dirty and can cause problems, whether it's just performance or just being flaky and buggy. But some customers use their VM and upgrade it and then recapture it and do it that way. But our general recommendation is spin up a new VM with the latest OS you want, capture it, and there's your image of that.
And there's a bunch of lower level technical reasons why it's not a best practice to do the in-place process. And I think we have either another video or something that talks a little bit about that. But if you want more information on that, email us. But definitely recommend always going clean.
Great, thank you. So Derek said he's been using the SmartDeploy trial for the last week and trying out some different scenarios, but he's running into a few snags. And he says, I want to know what's the troubleshooting procedure for this kind of scenario?
Just let us know. Email your account rep or sales@smartdeploy.com. We'll set up time with one of our engineers and we'll get you unstuck.
Perfect. Don wants to know, is there a way to have an application pack prompt for license key upon deployment?
That's a good question. Currently, we do not have that functionality on deployment. This next release will have it actually prompting you on download. So let's say that you have, your multiple activation key for Office or something like that, and it's going to be the same key every time. Once you download the pack, we'll have a little flag that asks you for the license key. You put it in, it replaces the macro basically that's in the task list to license that piece of software, and we'll do that one-off depending on how every piece of software is licensed differently, so how we get that license key in would change. We definitely can look at adding it on the deployment side as well, so that the client asks for it. It just might be a little confusing for end users to then have to go and find.
Sure, thanks Eric. And Sebastian wants to hear more about the layering piece and what we mean by managing in layers.
Yeah, I think the layering piece is our most succinct way of describing how it all works and helping customers understand what this is and how it goes. But the point is that each one of these layers has an individualized methodology and way for managing that, right? So the hardware layer is managed with platform packs, and it has a unique work stream to optimize that. The operating system layer has a unique work stream of spin up the VM, capture it into a WIM, right? And similarly with the data layer, you can capture it and move it to a new device. And the application layer, like you can capture it, or you can deploy discrete applications in a couple of different ways. So it's our way of architecturally explaining and drawing it out to customers. But to your point, is it technologically layering? And not really in the same way like maybe a Winova or something was. It's more an ability to describe you have a efficient methodology for managing each one of these pieces of the stack that runs on the device.
But to be clear, each of the components are physically and logically separate from the next. In other words, platform packs are a single file that wraps up all the device drivers and hardware-related executables into one package. Then above that is the hardware layer, which consists of your OS image, operating system, common applications. Then next, applications also packaged up into their own packages called SPK files or application packages. And then the user layer is, might be either from a cloud source or managed independently. So that's the way that we think about it, architecturally how it works, and I guess logically in a sense how it works as well.
Yeah. So if you want to draw it straight out, your hardware layer is your platform, your OS layers, your WIM, your hardware layers, your platform pack, the SPKs, your application stack, and it all runs natively on the endpoint.
And they can be generally mixed and matched almost completely universally. And that's the other great thing about this, and this is where the notion of sort of this VDI-like manageability comes to bear, in that it's really, truly hardware independent. So you've got a unique advantage, an unfair advantage over legacy solutions by taking this approach that has been validated about 1 million times a year by customers doing lots and lots and lots of this job.
Great, thank you. All right, we are almost 10 minutes past here, so we're going to go ahead and call it. If you have further questions, like I mentioned, feel free to reach out. You will get an email, and you can feel free to reply to that, and we'll get you in touch with Eric or Spencer or Aaron to get your questions answered. So thank you so much for being here. Feel free to jump in and take SmartDeploy for a test drive and let us know what you think. We always want to hear feedback. I think we've said that a bunch of times today, but we build this product for you, for the people who are out there doing the work, and and it's gone really well, and we have a ton of happy customers. You can check out reviews on Capterra, G2 Crowd. We're pretty active on Spiceworks. There's a bunch of reviews there. But yeah, thank you so much for being here, and have a wonderful day.